Hello everyone. In the first two lectures, we learned about economic development of China in general. Today, we will take a look at the economy of Wenzhou. Let's start from Wenzhou's geographic location. This is a map of China. It's said that the shape of land on China is like a rooster. The northeast part is the head. Inner Mongolia is the back. Xinjiang and Tibet form the tail. 2 feet are Hainan and Taiwan. Where is Wenzhou? It is right on the belly of the rooster. This map shows the 3 major economic zones in China. Economic level of the 3 zones stands for the highest level of China's economic development. Wenzhou belongs to the Yangtze River Delta Economic Zone. The Yangtze River Delta Economic Zone centers around Shanghai, including cities like Hangzhou, Ningbo, Wenzhou, and so on and so forth. This zone covers only 3.7% of China's area, but produces about 23.6% of the whole country's GDP. Then let's take a closer look at Wenzhou. This is a map of Wenzhou. The urban area of Wenzhou consists of Lucheng District, Ouhai District, and Longwan District. There is also a Dongtou District here on the island. Besides, Wenzhou covers the counties and cities of Rui'an, Yueqing, Longgang, and Yongjia County. Our university, Wenzhou University, is in the Ouhai District. When we talk about Wenzhou, we do not just refer to Wenzhou city area. We are talking about the whole Wenzhou region. So, what is Wenzhou's level of economic development? In Chapter 1, we learned that GDP is the main indicator of the level of the economy. So we need to check Wenzhou's GDP first. In 2020, Wenzhou's GDP was 687.1 billion yuan, which is 3.4% higher than that of 2019. Is this value high or low? We need to compare it with the GDP of other cities. Ranking China's cities from the highest to lowest in terms of total GDP, where can Wenzhou be ranked? The 30th on the list in 2020. Is the 30th a satisfactory ranking? Yes, because China currently has more than 600 cities. These over 600 cities are of different administrative ranks. For example, Beijing is the capital city of China, so it has a higher administrative rank than other Chinese cities. Hangzhou is the capital city of Zhejiang province, so its administrative rank is higher than that of Wenzhou. There are nearly 300 cities of the same level as Wenzhou. Therefore, to be ranked in the top 30 of the country in terms of GDP is pretty good. However, when looking at GDP per capita, Wenzhou's per capita GDP performance is not that impressive. GDP per capita is to divide the total population into the total GDP. Whether the GDP per capita is high or low has a lot to do with the total population. Then, what is the population size of Wenzhou? According to the 7th National Census in 2020, Wenzhou's population reached around 9.6 million. This population size is roughly comparable to that of New York in the United States. There are about 20 cities in China with a population of 9 million or more, and Wenzhou is one of them. The sheer size of the population is one of the reasons for Wenzhou's not high GDP per capita. Another reason for Wenzhou's not high GDP per capita has to do with the characteristics of Wenzhou people. A significant number of Wenzhou's population works and lives abroad or in foreign countries. According to statistics, there are about 0.7 million Wenzhou people doing business in 131 countries, and about 1.75 million Wenzhou people doing business in other cities in China. GDP is calculated on the basis of products or services produced within the territory of a country or place. For example, products produced by Chinese factories in Thailand are counted in Thailand's gross domestic product. These products or services created by Wenzhou people in other cities or other countries are not counted in Wenzhou's GDP. Among the many cities in China, Wenzhou is a special one. What's so special about it? Because it has developed by developing the private economy. Some people say, if you want to see the highest development level of a private economy, you need to come to Wenzhou. To a certain extent, it is true. The scale and level of a private economy in Wenzhou has long been higher than the nation's average. Nationwide, private enterprises account for more than 95% of all the enterprises, contribute to over 60% of the total GDP, and 50% of the nation's tax revenues. But in Wenzhou, private enterprises account for 99.5% of all the enterprises, contribute to over 80% of the total GDP, and nearly 90% of government tax revenues. In a word, economic development of Wenzhou is the development of a private economy. Based on different ownerships, various types of businesses fall into three types: sole proprietorships, partnerships, and corporations. Sole proprietorship is also known as self-employment. After the reform and opening up, Chinese government has allowed sole proprietorship to apply for business licenses and operate legally. Wenzhou, as a pilot city for the self-employed, issued the country's first business license in December 1980, owned by a 19-year-old Wenzhou girl named Zhang Huamei. Starting from selling small commodities such as buttons, Zhang Huamei took advantage of the reform and made a big business out of her small business, setting up her own company, becoming the chairman of the board of a company now. She is one of the best representatives of self-employed entrepreneurs in China. Wenzhou has a large number of leading companies whose business is not only nationwide but also multinational. I'll introduce two of them here. Qingshan Kongwu. Qingshan Holding Group. This list is excerpted from the 2019 Fortune 500 list of companies. Two things are particularly noteworthy of this list. One is, it is the first time in history that there were more Chinese companies than US companies. On the list, there are 129 Chinese companies, 121 American companies. However, among the 129 Chinese companies, 107 are state-owned enterprises. Only 22 are private companies. Hence, the second point of interest is one of the 22 Chinese private companies is from Wenzhou, and that company is Qingshan Holding Group. Stainless steel is the company's main product. In 2020, on the list of Fortune 500 companies, Qingshan Holding Group was ranked the 279th, up from the 361 in 2019. 正泰集团 Qint Group. In 2002, at the annual bidding conference of Italian National Electricity Company, a company from China won the bid over large multinational electrical groups such as General Motors and Siemens. That company was the Qint Group, 正泰集团, a private enterprise from Wenzhou. On October 1st, 2019, at the 70th anniversary of the founding of People's Republic of China held in Tiananmen Square, Zhengtai's founder Nan Cunhui was invited to ride on a float. As an outstanding representative of Chinese private entrepreneurs to witness the great moment. Zhengtai has operations in more than 140 countries and regions, employs more than 30,000 people, has annual sales of 60 billion RMB, and is one of the top 100 private enterprises in China and Asia. In August 2021, its share price reached a record high, and its market value exceeded 100 billion yuan. The history of Zhengtai's development is not only the history of a private enterprise, but also the history of a national brand's growth. Famous brands. Wenzhou's private enterprises have created many well-known brands. Electrical brands, 正泰、德力西、人民电器等。Footwear brands, 康奈、奥康、红蜻蜓等。Apparel brands, 森马、美特斯邦威、报喜鸟等。Features of the Wenzhou merchants. Wenzhou is a special subcultural area in Zhejiang. Wenzhou's merchants are known as the Jews of the East. Features of the Wenzhou merchants can be summarized as follows. Dare to be the first, adept at changing with times, and being willing to cooperate with others. Dare to be the first in the world. Favorable macro-environment or natural endowments have contributed to the economic takeoff of some regions in China. Compared to those places, Wenzhou has neither favorable microenvironments nor natural endowments. To a large extent, Wenzhou's private economy was developed spontaneously by local individuals. Following examples show the courage of the Wenzhou businessmen who dare to be the first in the world. In 2003, when the war raged in Iraq, some Wenzhou businessmen wanted to seize the business opportunities for post-war reconstruction in Iraq. According to a Wenzhou businessman's analysis, a country will become a big market after the war, because after war there would be a serious lack of materials, and reconstruction creates huge demands. Li, the owner of an international trade company in Wenzhou, who had just returned from the Middle East, told reporters his company mainly exported shoes and other daily necessities. These goods would certainly be very popular during the country's reconstruction. Li also told reporters at first several of his partners were hesitant, but now everyone was taking action, and some had already shipped large quantities of goods to areas around Iraq, just waiting for the war to end, so that the goods could enter the country as quickly as possible. There would be dangers and difficulties, but they were willing to explore the Iraqi market. It was going to be a highly competitive business battle. Adapt and changing with time. Throughout the history of China's commercial and economic development, a number of commercial groups linked by geographical ties were developed together. Wenshang, Wenzhou merchants, are one of them. One of the reasons why the Wenshang group has been well preserved in modern times is Wenzhou merchants are good at keeping up with the times. Only those who can keep up with the times will not be eliminated. For entrepreneurs in Wenzhou, change is the only constant thing. Senma Group has changed in accordance with the times. Senma has been ranked as one of the top 100 enterprises in Wenzhou for many years, and has been selected as one of the top 500 private enterprises in China. Originally, business scope of the Senma Group had nothing to do with agriculture, but in the context of the integrated development of urban and rural areas, Senma Group has been exploring ways of feeding agriculture with industry. Since 2007, the group established the Senma Ecological Agriculture Development Corporation. Old tangerine, Bogan, is a local special fruit. Senma Agriculture is dedicated to the cultivation, research, and sales of Ogan series products, has successfully developed Ogan fruit tea, dried fruit, and other products. Senma Agriculture not only makes traditional Ogan with more than 2,000 years history being popular in the market, but also transforms poor villages into wealthy ones. Willing to cooperate with others. As the saying goes, a single tree does not make a forest. Collective strength of the Wenzhou people has given Wenzhou economy power. Usually, individual qualities of Wenzhou merchants are no more special or better than those of others. Some of them even have obvious disadvantages in certain qualities and abilities. But how could Wenzhou merchants be able to move around the world doing business and running enterprises? For many Wenzhou merchants, their own resources are quite limited. They build social networks based on family and friends. Such networks support their entry, survival, and development in a new environment, and their survival and development further expand their social networks. That That's all for today's lecture. Let's review the words we've learned in this part. 长三角经济圈，市、区、县、首都、省会、人口、民营经济、企业、个人独资、合伙制、公司制企业、董事长、领军企业、国有企业、集团、上市公司、股价、品牌、知名品牌。By now, we have learned all three parts about China's economic development. Hope you have gained some understanding of China's economic development and have learned some economic terms. Good luck with your learning.